Okay, let's start. Let's start the class. This is slide number, lecture number 18B. There is another slide called lecture number 18A. Lecture number 18A is just a brief introduction about cash flow in construction. I will share that thing. I will share the link. It is a short videos from others that introduce this concept, but I will go through totally lecture number 18B. Lecture number 18B is very, very important. Every semester we do ask the same question in the final exam, so make sure you understand how to do the whole calculation. Otherwise, you are going to miss a hefty sum of information. Okay, we are going to have all right. Okay, let's go ahead with this thing. So in this class, or even in previous exam, previous slide, okay. In previous slide, you have been introduced value, cost, receipt, etc., etc. Value is normally the one we associate with the contract values that client will bear the amount, and then the cost. Cost is basically expenditure by the contractor to buy things in order to fulfill the requirement of the project. And then on top of that, of course, contractor will have to make profit. So contractor will mark up some profit. And then receipt. Receipt is equivalent to payment. Payment meaning to say, by right, contractor should receive whatever the value of the work based on the quantity of the work. But the issue is that when contractor claim based on the value of the work, they will be paid in accordance to certain term and condition. Meaning to say the payment received would not be equivalent to value. Otherwise, it would be the same anyway. That is what we call receipt. So first thing first, cost, about project costs. Project costs, or we call it construction costs, okay? The money that need to construct things. So contractor normally will have to buy material, and then bring in a large number of manpower, and then of course have to bring in machineries. And these three items will go into the direct costs. The direct cost is very big component of the total construction cost, normally around 90%. Then come the other dimension, indirect costs. Other than this cost, man, machine, and material, other costs, meaning to say it could be utility bill, it could be cabin, it could be salary of the professional or management team. Everything other than man, machine, material will go into the indirect costs. And indirect costs amount around less than 10%. When you add these things together, then it becomes total cost. Normally, contractor will calculate direct cost and indirect cost, then come up with the total cost. And on top of that, contractor will put certain percentage of markup. We call it markup here. And then when we add together total cost plus profit, then it become value. Okay, so direct cost again, material, machinery, and manpower. Manpower, we associate with workers or labor, whereby manpower among project management team will be paid according to the indirect cost, what we call proportion. Then indirect costs. Other name of indirect costs is basically overhead costs, costs or operating costs that need to pay what? To pay preliminary item. If you open up any contract document, you will see one section of preliminary items. So those items normally being paid under the indirect costs. And then management salary. People under the what we call organizational chart, project manager, engineers, you just name it. So it will be there. And then site supervision, including the payment to the supervisor, monitoring system that you need to pay, software if uh, there is inspection, after inspection, all kind of reporting. So that's what we call site supervision. Temporary work, temporary road, temporary whatever temporary, uh, it is meant to construct the real thing. So it is part of the indirect cost. Of course, site facilities, whether you rent the cabin or you construct those site office, will be part of the indirect cost. Even portion of the headquarters that we refer to the contractor. Contractor survival basically depend on project. After project, if for instance contractor do not have any project for that particular year, well, contractor have to use their own saving, for instance, in order to finance whatever costs at the headquarters. Could be rent, could be utilities, and all kind of salary payment. But if there are projects, certain portion will be will come from the project anyway, and etc. Okay, other than the three items that we mentioned under here, then all the costs will go into the indirect cost. But it is not a lot. It is only less than 10%. Big portion will go into this one, 90%. Okay. Okay. Then when we add these two dimensions together, direct cost and indirect cost, this is what we call total cost. Then when we add total cost with the profit, then it becomes the value. So V equivalent to C plus P. In short, this is the formula that I will use again and again. We have introduced this formula since second half of the semester, talking about resource smoothing, leveling, and then we goes into project time cost trade-off. Now this thing. With regard to relationship between indirect cost and direct cost with time. What does this graph reflect? Okay, we do not want to confuse you with the things that we have learned in the previous topic. We introduce a graph, but that graph, time versus cost versus time also, but there are 2 points. In that particular graph, there are 2 points that we want to show. One is the extreme point whereby you can complete the project at the longest duration, and another one is at the shortest duration. And along the way, you can see the movement of the graph anyway. But this graph simply reflect your the spending, contractor spending. That's what we call monthly costs. Monthly costs. Let's say we do have scale. It could be daily, it could be weekly, or it could be monthly. Let's say it is monthly. This is the end of the project, end of the project, and this is the start of the project, start. So this is a month number 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry. What is this? Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., etc. And when we start on the first month, okay, we start with nothing. Then we start with nothing, and then the first month we do have this point, for instance. For the indirect costs, when we plot the expenditure, so the graph looks like flat graph, monthly spending. So that's why indirect costs, in another term, people normally refer to the fixed costs. This is another name for this indirect cost. Why people say it is fixed? Well, if you can make analogy to yourself, for instance, every month, how much do you spend on utility bill if you rent a house, for instance? So your utility bill is about the same every month, about the same. It could be plus and minus. Rent is almost the same every month. Food, if you eat the same thing, for instance, it is almost the same. Transportation, that's why indirect cost, it is the other name of indirect cost is fixed cost. That is the assumption, okay, for to simplify the matters, even though they could be up and down. So when we have these kind of things, every month we spend the same thing again and again, and of course we are going to have a flat relationship from the beginning of the project until the end for the indirect cost. But for the direct cost, since it is associated with 3 items, man, machine, and material, the spending is going to be very progressive. Meaning to say, when you start the project, of course, you don't buy anything yet. You don't have to pay people salary yet. But then, when the project start to move according to the work, for instance, then you are going to start spending, okay, up, and then there is a peak. Normally, when we start with the groundwork and then substructure work, and then we finish the superstructure work, maybe the spendings at the peak already. Then the rest will be the external, the finishes. It could be internal, external, landscaping, etc., etc., until the end of the project. So that is the logic of the spending. Okay, remember, this is monthly cost plotting. When we translate this graph into cumulative, remember, cumulative, the word cumulative. What does cumulative mean? Cumulative mean if we add the amount from month number 1 into month number 2 and into month number until the end. It is like your CPA. You have CPA and you have CGPA. It's the same concept anyway. Okay, when we translate the indirect cost, which is flat in nature, the graph, it will turn into a linear graph. This is what we call indirect costs, linear relationship. But if we translate the monthly direct cost, which is parabolic in nature, it will be shaped like this. This is what we call the S shape. S shape, okay, S curve kind of shape. And if, for instance, if we add these two graphs together in order to get one graph, let's say at any point, this point and this point, since indirect cost is only 10%, which is sometimes it is even less than 10%, and the direct cost is much bigger. And of course, when you add those two value together, and the shape of the graph will basically take after the bigger amount for sure. And then we are going to have, see, total cumulative cost which will looks like S. This is what we call S curve that you have learned, you have heard being used in the construction industry. If, for instance, later on in your life, you are going to become civil engineer working in the office as designer, and then civil engineer working at the construction site. Even you work in the office, for instance, every now and then you need to go to the site also because you need to supervise the one that you already designed. And the site is the one that where everything matter the most, because whatever you have been designing for the past few years, for instance, now you are going to see the outcome during construction period, and you are going to hear these kind of things such as the S curve. S curve is being associated with what we call indicator. Indicator that can reflect what? That can reflect about the progression of cost, or it can reflect the progression of time. So that's why in our class, in the next slide, project monitoring and control, we are going to generate, we are going to develop and see how the two popular S curve that normally people mention in the construction industry, physical S curve, financial S curve, how basically those things being developed. Because at the end of the day, when you start working, you are the one that is going to come up with that graph. You simply cannot ask anybody else because you are the one being called engineer, isn't it? Okay, so that is the theory where this S curve is coming from the accumulation of costs. Could be daily, weekly, or monthly, depending on the unit. And even though the word S being mentioned, the graph sometimes doesn't look like S at all. Okay, you take a look at this example. Well, it is just a graph that people might confuse. Where is the S? It is the association. People associate because there could be possibility when you have many activities. When you come up with the cumulative cost, okay, it could have some kind of form like this. It could, but in some situation, it is just this kind of graph. And we do have a bigger one, for instance. Okay, we do have a much more activity compared to the previous example. Let's take let's say this is the bar chart for one project, 12 activities. When we plot the S curve, it looks like this. Still doesn't look like S anyway, but this is what people normally refer to the S curve. Okay, now let's take a look at the fundamental first. How people determine the project cost. From the information of the drawing, for instance, you have learned in one of the class project estimating class. In Malaysia, for instance, we do have quantity surveyor. Throughout their life, university years, they basically learn about taking off. So they are the better person to conduct this thing. But again, being engineer, we learn so many things because we need this quantity, or we need to do taking off in order to fit our job prospect. Example, we are the one that need to come up with the scheduling. If you have scheduler or planner at the workplace, you can pass the buck, but at the end of the day, not many places do have. So process of taking off, okay? The process of taking off in order to get the quantity based on certain portion of the work, and then estimate the cost of the work. How do you estimate the cost of work? You need to come up with the unit rate. You have learned this thing. Unit rate of the work. Let's say unit rate for earthwork. RM, I don't know, you just put it 50 ringgit per cubic meter. This is what we call unit rate. And what does this unit rate reflect? It reflects man, machine, man, machine, material, plus profit. When we, if for instance, if we want to tell people uh, how much the amount of money required in order for you to perform certain job, so you basically need to come up with the quantity time unit rate, because quantity is the amount of things. At the end of the day, you are going to get the amount for one particular activities. When you add up all those activities together in a bill of quantities, then you are going to have the amount according to section, and then you add another section, you are going to get the total amount. When you get the total amount plus all the preliminary item, then it becomes the total cost. That is then it becomes the total value of the project. And you notice that profit here. In the unit rate, profit is embedded there. At the beginning, I already mentioned about profit here, profit. Normally, contractor will calculate total costs, all in all, and then mark up. So that's why profit sometimes better known as markup, contractor's markup. Contractor will mark up, it is out of this total cost, it is like 20%, for instance. And then at the end of the day, we know how much is the profit. Then the amount of profit add back with the total cost, then it becomes value. So this contract value is the one that contractor put on the bidding document during tender. And if, for instance, contractor selected, so that amount or the revised amount will be used as a value. And the value basically consists of what? Total construction cost plus the profit. So this 20% of the profit being calculated at the beginning of the project, for instance, then later on will be distributed into the unit rate. Not every unit rate will have 20% each. 20%, 20%. No, it is not like that. Because you must remember there are thousands and thousands of unit rate. It is like you go to the shopping complex, Eon, for instance. There are thousands and thousands of items there, and each item do not have the same profit margin for the Eon. Some could be 5%, some could be 10%, 20%, some could be break even. Yeah, like that. But overall, when you add up, then basically you are going to have one amount for easy discussion. Okay, that is the total profit, like 20%, for instance. Okay, then this project cost will be put into what we call activity or task, each of the tasks, and then again will be distributed accordingly. So it depends, how do you distribute the cost as per the duration of the task. Okay, let's take a look at this example. Okay, let's say this example, we should have cost column here. A, 90K, let's say 90K. B would be 190K, and then C would be 220, and then D would be 150K. Then this one is 100, and the last one is 100K. Okay, let's say that is the amount that we calculate through this process of taking off. Okay, let's say this is the cost. Let's say it is a cost. Okay, then you notice that this 90K from the A task will then be distributed according to whatever calculation that we want to put. Either it could be prorate or it could be proportionate. In this particular A, it looks like it is prorated. Prorated. So each month, A will be running for 2 months. So each month basically equally distributed. But for B, it is not equally distributed. This is more realistic. Remember we mentioned about this parabolic in nature. Because at the beginning of the activity, you might spend a little bit less, then at the peak, and then reduce a little bit. So this is more realistic. 50,000, then 100,000, then 140. Okay, but in our class, for the sake of calculation, we just basically want you to distribute the amount, either it is cost or value of the project, of the activity equally, according to the length of the bar. It is easier that way. And then what happened after we distribute those things? You notice that in January, what is the activity running, and then you can calculate. You can calculate in terms of distribution of the cost according to the month. For instance, let's say January, you take a look at what is the bar going on, the bar of the activity that is going on. It looks like A, portion of A. So A will be running like 1 month, okay, for the whole January. Remember, activity might not be running for the whole month, but in our situation, we just draw like 1 month. And how much is that particular month going to spend? 45K. And for February, what other activity running? 2 activities here. You add those things together, it becomes 95. And then March is here. And then for April, there are 4 activity running, 330, and this one. And if you add back this thing, it will be equivalent to this thing that you total up. What we are doing is basically, instead of having the cost according to each task, we are distributed the cost according to the month. Why we need to do that? Simply because the issue of payment, the practice of the payment in the construction industry anywhere in the world, a client is going to pay you according to the month or the progress of the work. And the easiest way is basically pay according to monthly payment. That's what we call monthly payment. But of course, construction practice is basically you need to perform the work first, then you submit the claim. Let's say for the first month, after you complete the first month, then you submit the claim. Then the client, with the help of the consultant, will process, will confirm those things. Especially the process will be done by the consultant anyway, and to confirm the amount being claimed by the contractors, and then submit to the client for the payment. Client is the one that going to make payment anyway, because client is the one that own the project and they are the one that have money. Consultant is basically doing the work on behalf of the client. So that is the practice. So that's why we have to translate whatever things that we already calculated according to the month. Okay. So now, based on this concept, now we can come up with something. Even though we are going to see this thing in the subsequent slide, but it is already in subsequent topic, the last lecture of this semester. But since it is here, okay, why don't we go through? You notice there are, I'm using the same example of the schedule, okay? So the one I color in green, and then another one here, another one here, I color in blue here at the bottom here, because I am going to show you how basically we generate 2 S-curve based on schedule. And remember, at the beginning of the planning and scheduling, at the beginning of the planning scheduling class, introduction to planning scheduling, remember there are three reasons or three basically why we need to do planning scheduling. One of the reason is basically monitoring and control. And now from here, you can see we can generate S-curve, for instance, for the purpose of monitoring and control. Okay, let's focus on this column here. We call it cost column. Just focus on this column only. Okay, based on this column, we call it cost. And this is January, February, March, until the end of the project there. Okay, March, April, May, and June. The project is running for 6 months only. And you notice that if we go according to the column, so in this slide, we are going to use a lot of concept going through the column and row, okay, for the calculation of the cash flow. So according to January column here, so ask yourself, what are the activity running? What are the activity running? It looks like the running activity is on the A. A will be running like 1 whole month. And how much is the amount? 45K. This is the amount, 45K. And then for February, this is 95K. For March, 100K. For April, you add up everything, 330. And then for May, 180. And then for June is 100. So that is what we call cost according to month. Okay, I can put it here, monthly cost. Okay, monthly cost distribution. And then this row, the subsequent row, I translate the monthly cost into cumulative costs. How do I do that? Simple. You just copy back 45,000 and put it at the end of the at the right hand side of the column to indicate that the calculation that we consider is at the end of each month. And for your information, all our calculation for cash flow, we are going to consider at the end of that particular month, at the end of each month. So at the end of January, 45,000. And then at the end of February, how much cumulatively the amount? So you just simply add 45 plus 95 equivalent to 140,000. If you are using Excel later on to do the cash flow calculation, you just simply put a formula, automatically it will calculate for you. And for March, 140 plus 100, 240. For April, 240 plus 330, 570, 570 plus 180, 750. And lastly, 750 plus 100,000, it becomes 850,000. And you notice the last one, 850,000, after we do the cumulative cost, it is going to be equivalent with this one. It should be equivalent. Later on, when you do the cash flow calculation, there are a few checks to indicate whether you are doing the right, your calculation is right or not. One of them is basically here. If, for instance, at the end of the day, the amount is not equivalent to this amount, so meaning to say it could be something wrong with the monthly calculation, okay, monthly amount, because when you draw the bar chart or you take the proportion of the bar chart wrongly, then the amount will not be the same. That is the issue. Okay, so once we get this thing, you notice that another row, percentage of cumulative costs, we can convert that into percentage. How do we convert into percentage? This is how you do that. 45,000 divided by total amount, 850,000 times 100%, you are going to get 5.3%. 5.3%. This is how you get this percentage. You can do the same thing for the next one. 140 divided by 850 times 100%, you will get 16.5. So what does this percentage mean? If you take this row and plot into the graph will look like this. Okay, this is the amount, this is the percentage, okay, the percentage, and this is what we call financial S-curve. Now you are able, okay, for a simple project that only have how many? A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 activities. And the most important thing, we need to construct the bar chart. Now really, in your assignment number 1, we have given you a few, one or two questions to practice how to construct the bar chart. And now, okay, perhaps in this topic, you will appreciate the bar chart, because you need the bar chart in order to come up with the S-curve and subsequently the whole calculation of project cash flow forecasting. Okay. All right. So that is an example of the S-curve, financial S-curve. Financial S-curve happen when we take the amount of money dimension. Okay, we take the amount of money dimension and put into our bar chart accordingly. Then do the monthly calculation, monthly distribution of cost, make it cumulative and translate into percentage. Then you will get this S-curve. Okay, having said that, we are going to use the same schedule, because in any project, schedule is only one schedule. But from that schedule, there are many things that we can generate. So we already generated financial S-curve. Now we want to generate another S-curve. Instead of using the cost dimension, now we are using the duration here, this column, duration dimension, and apply into our bar chart. Remember, this is the same bar chart: January, February, March, April, May, June. The same bar chart. So how do we do that? Again, going through column and rows. January column here. January column, you need to ask yourself, what is or are tasks, what are the tasks running? So it looks like A is the only one running, and it ran for 1 whole month. So write down there, 1 whole month. Then going through F, February, there are 2 activities running, and each run for 1 month. 1 plus 1 will be equivalent to 2 months. And then on the 3rd month, March, there is 1 bar running. And then on April, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on May will be 2 months, because there are 2 bar here. And lastly, 1 bar. Okay. And then you notice that we translate those things into the cumulative in another row here. We translate into cumulative. So we just simply put the amount of duration there on the right hand side of the January column for the first one. And then for February, you simply add number 1 plus number 2 for the February, then it becomes 3. 3 plus 1 become 4. 4 plus 4 here become 8. 8 plus 2 become 10, and then lastly 10 plus 1 equivalent to 11. What does this 11 mean? Remember, the project is running from January until June. June is only 6 months. 6 months is the duration of the project. But this amount reflect the work effort in terms of the duration needed. If you count how many bar, the yellow color bar per month, you will notice there is 11 months. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So this is what 11 simply mean. It is not 11 months of the project only 6 months, but work effort based on this dimension. And this 11 should be equivalent to this 11 because the duration in terms of the task already given, already shown there. What we are doing is just distribute according to the month. And then from that, we can get this percentage. So 1, okay, take the how many, 9 and 1 divided by 11 times 100%, you are going to get 9.1%. You see? That's how you get the first percentage. Or you can calculate here, 3 divided by 11, 100%, you are going to get 27.3%. Then you do the rest. When you take this row, or including this what we call the capping there, then you put into Excel, you can plot the graph. This is the graph that you get. This is the duration. Okay, this is the percentage, and those are the things that we call it physical S curve. Now you hear another name for the S curve, physical. Physical basically refer to how much work effort that we need to spend. We need to spend in terms of duration. Okay, so now you know from only one schedule of the project, you can come up with a 2 dimension of the S curve, financial S curve and physical S curve. Okay. On the last day of the semester, we are going to demonstrate Microsoft project. One of the things that we are going to generate is basically financial S curve and physical S curve. Once we update the project, we do project tracking, then you are going to see we can come up with the plan S curve and then actual S curve. Plan versus actual. So this is what we call plan. Plan mean from the original schedule that we have. Similar to this one. This is also, we call it plan. Okay, plan. This is what we plan. Later on, when the project basically start, then only we can monitor the project. It might not follow the plan. So whatever it is, we are going to plot accordingly. Then we are going to, if the actual progress is running late, for instance, then we need to come up with what we call a recovery strategy to catch up with the original plan. That will be the things that we are going to talk about next slide anyway. Okay, this is another example of how from the cost distribution, then each of the bar chart in blue, we distribute the cost according to the prorate. Okay, if you notice, we prorate means to say 4,000 divided by 2, so each will get 2,000, for instance. That is what we call prorate. So at the end of the day, we come up with the monthly cost, and then we convert into cumulative costs. Then we can plot the graph. This is what we call plan. And this is when we use the element of the cost, money, this is what we call financial S-curve. Financial S-curve. I do not come up with the duration. Otherwise, we are going to have another S-curve. We call it physical S-curve. Okay. So this is just the fundamental. Okay, project cash flow forecasting. This is the one that we are going to learn. The projection of income. The projection of income and expenses. When we talk the project cash flow forecasting, we are going to refer to the project, the construction project, meaning to say it is very similar to the contractor's cash flow. Okay, we are not going to bother about client cash flow. No. This is just simply to show when we have a construction project running and contractor is the one that we consider as main player there. So we want to know how much money going in and out of the contractor's pocket. Okay, so the projection of income meaning to say money going into the contractor's pocket or account. Where basically the contractor income come from? Well, contractor income only coming from one source: payment from the client. Client payment. So if contractor do not get payment, then there will be a problem. Why? Because contractor is going to expense, meaning to say buy things, non-stop. You cannot basically stop paying worker salary for that particular month by giving excuse, hey, can I pay you the following month because I didn't get payment from client? Well, there is no way to do that. Okay, you have to pay the supplier, you have to pay the subcon because they also need money. You see, expand never stop. But the problem is income, client payment. We never know. Okay, if we are dealing with a good client that pay according to whatever things that they promise and pay according to what we claim, that is a healthy cash flow. But whatever it is, there will be situation whereby the expense could be more than the income that go in. So that's why contractor need to be prepared. Contractor need to be prepared. For instance, this graph will basically tell us the issue of the contractor, basically where the contractor need money or not. Need money means to say contractor have to get the money from somewhere, whether their own cash bank or basically their own their lenders. Lenders meaning to say banks, could be, I don't know, from somebody that have money. But when you borrow money from somebody, they are going to give you not free money, but money with some kind of interest. So that's why you need to do the calculation. You need to do the projection in order for you to borrow at only specific time and specific amount. Otherwise, you are going to keep paying interest. You are going to keep paying interest, and the interest amount could basically eat up your profit. So we do not want to do that. So how are we going to know or do the the cash flow projection? Okay, there are a few steps that we are going to follow. First thing, gathering information related to cost distribution. We have done this in the previous slide. This is an example of cost distribution. Okay, we basically need to know how much is each task cost, and then we normally distribute according to prorate is the easiest way, but in reality you could basically distribute according to what you wish. Okay, that would be number one. Number two, Number two, gathering information of payment and expenditure. Remember, payment is from client, and expenditure is contractor. You are the one that have to buy things. And number three, cash out and cash in. Okay, cash in basically refer to the payment received. Cash out is basically refer to the expenditure. Cash out and expenditure, there is another name that we can associate with that. This is equivalent to the cost. Whereas the cash in equivalent to the value. And remember, the differences between value and cost would be the profit. But the issue with regard to the payment, supposedly it's supposed to be the value, but the payment that contractor will receive is not going to be what we call clear cut on the same amount, because client is going to hold some payment due to what? Due to a few reasons. We are going to take a look at next slide. Okay, number four, step number four, plotting the graph of payment versus income like this in order to show the amount in a visual sense. Okay, and you notice that we can plot this graph, which is not necessary. When you do those things in a table form in the Excel, automatically you will get all the value that you need. Okay, the values according to your calculation. But this is just to show. Okay, for instance, you can plot two graphs. What is the graph? Cash out. Remember, cash out is equivalent to the cost distribution. Okay, cash out. And of course, why do we draw it is a little bit higher than the payment? This is the issue. What we call the normal way. When you start the project, on the first day, contractor will have to pay here and there. And then, let's say this is the first month. You are going to have this amount at the end of the first month, and then at the end of the second amount. So this graph that we draw is cumulative graph. Cumulative. Graph must be cumulative. Okay. So this is the second month, this is the second month, this is the third month, for instance, based on that point. So this is what we call fourth month, this is the fifth month, and when you do the cash flow calculation, you are going to extend into a few more months. Okay? This point, this is what we call PC. PC. PC means practical completion. Practical completion date. We call it PC. So oftentimes in our exam question, we are going to mention about practical completion. So when we mention those words, you basically must understand. So we refer to this date, the end of the project. Meaning to say you are already complete the project and you hand over the project. But why do we extend the graph into a few more months? Because in construction, after you hand over to the client, then the defect liability period will start. Will start until a few months or even a few years. In a bigger project, it could basically go until 1.5 years. That's what we call defect liability period. And only after defect liability period and plus sometime extra time given to basically repair all the final defect, then you have the final account, FA, final account. Okay, and you notice at the end of this point here, this point, this is what we call cost, total cost. Okay, and then there is another graph. We call it cash in, equivalent to payment, or in short, we can relate that thing to the value. But you have to bear in mind, it is not as simple as directly taking the values as per our formula, because the payment received is not going to be equivalent with values. Contractor is going to deduct here and there. But in our subsequent example, we can use that since we do not reduce any, we do not have any deduction. Okay, but in the real final exam question, normally there are some kind of deductions, so you simply cannot equate. But this cash in graph is coming from the value. So there are only two graphs that you need to remember: the cash out and cash in. So what is the cash out? Equivalent to the cost graph. Simple, straightforward. But cash in is equivalent to value, but then we need to be very, very careful with the term and payment. Okay, the cash in graph, when we start a project, you notice that it is a flat line there. Why it is flat line? Because there is no payment received from the client. Payment is not going to, client is not going to pay you until you complete some amount of work, then you claim, then when they done with the process, then only payment will be released. So that's why it is zero. So you notice that this line is basically zero. The first month, zero money coming in. And only, let's say, after you complete the first month, then you submit claim, then you notice that in the second month, month number 2, at the end of second month, you notice there is a payment being done at this point. And that's why we draw this line like this. And what happened in between the end of the second month and then at the end of the third month? Of course, the line is flat again, because client is not going to pay you in the middle of something. They are just going to pay you based according to the monthly payment, isn't it? So that's why you have no money. Then only at the end of the third month, let's say you make a claim on the second month, then it is being paid. And since it is the cumulative graph, so it basically add up like that. So for the cash in payment, we call it as a step graph. Step graph. It is very similar to your salary. When you start working, your income looks like step graph. It is not like this graph. It is not like the upper graph. Upper graph is your spending, but the step graph is your income. People pay you only salary at the end of the month. If you are working in the government, you are safe, because government basically pay much earlier. So the cutoff will be 25th of every month. But if you work in the private sector, they are going to pay you maybe on the 5th, on the 6th, on the 7th, because according to law, there are a few days more it is allowable. You see how many days that you have to wait. Okay, so this is what we call step graph. When we, and you notice that the last payment will be here. It is 1 month after the project completion. Why? Because of course it will follow. It will follow according to whatever claim. The claim for the first month will be paid on the second month subsequently. And at the end of the project here, final account, you notice there is a point here. This is what we call value. And if we really close the account according to accounting system, the differences between we here and C here, this is what we call P. That's why in our project cash flow calculation, if you really done the calculation right, and you notice that the final account will be like this. There is a value amount, and then there is a cost. The differences should be equivalent to profit. We already know at the beginning of the project, but then in the accounting system that we spread according to the monthly, so you can do that, okay? And you notice what happened when we plot the graph. This is what happened. You notice, see, the one that I put hatchet here. The hatchet here indicate what? Indicate the issue. Contractors is basically spending every month, looks like, more than what the money that goes into the bank. Only on the 6 month onward, contractor is going to have excess money, not require money. Require money to say, meaning to say you need to borrow money. Excess money, basically you already safe in here. Only after 6 months. So if, for instance, you get a contract for 5 months, so meaning to say the whole project completion, you are running short of money. So that's why you, in order to become contractor, you need to have what we call some kind of your own money. You cannot expect money payment from the client is going to save you. No, no, no. It doesn't work that way. From many calculations that we have seen, contractor most of the time will be running short of cash throughout the project duration, because there are some amount of money being withheld only at the end of the project. Then you can see money is coming in. Okay, what to do? That is the practice. So in our class, and this is the final exam question. Every semester, we do ask the same question. Okay, believe me, we want to know this issue. Maximum cash required. Okay, let me erase. Okay, we want to know this thing. What is the maximum cash required on whatever month? You notice that the contractor is running short of money from the first month until the 6th month, for instance. But we want to know, let's say this is the first month, 2nd month, 3rd month, the 4th month. On the 4th month, this is what the amount of money that contractor already spent. But the contractor basically only going to receive money at this particular point. And whatever money that contractor have is basically based on the previous month. So, and you notice that this particular here, line here, indicate the things that we want to know, the cash required. So again, cash required formula is cash out minus cash in. This is what we call cash out, but you need to consider one thing. Let's say we are looking at the end of month 4. Okay, cash out on the 4th month, here I put it 4, but then we need to deduct with the cash in the 3rd month, not on the same month. If you do that on the same month, meaning to say you are only taking these differences, whereby contractor has been suffering for the entire month, waiting for the only one day when payment received. It is very similar to us, you know. We have been suffering for the whole month, then only when salary received, oh, okay, now you become happy. But how long can you maintain that happiness? Perhaps one day, because on that particular day you start paying everything, you left with nothing again. Okay, then you suffer the whole thing. So maximum cash required for the month of April, for instance, is going to be calculated using this formula. Cash out on the month of April minus cash in on the month of the previous month, meaning to say May. Then only you are going to get the calculation. And among this point, there could be a bigger amount. The bigger amount is the one that we want to know. And this is the answer. And when it is happening, it is going to be happening on, let's say on April. So now you already answer two questions. Two questions from the final exam question, cash flow. What could be the other two questions? The other two questions could be asking you about this point. Either value, value is at the top here. This is cost. Based on the data given, this is just a bonus point. Based on the data given, automatically, if the data is given based on cost, and then of course you can calculate value. If the data given based on value, you can always calculate cost based on this formula. V equivalent to C plus P. So now you can answer the three question already. The last question, okay, last question normally associated with monthly payment received, not the cumulative. Monthly payment received on particular month. If, for instance, you want to know the payment for the work on May, and that amount will be paid on June. So you take a look at what is the payment received on the month of June, but the work is being done on May, because the process is going to be evaluated like 1 month, isn't it? Based on the question. Normally, when you completed the work on at the end of May, then it is going to be processed and then it is going to be paid on the June. So you have to take a look at the table that you basically come up with and look at what is the amount being paid on the June. The question is asking for May, but the amount will be paid in June. So don't get confused. So now you already know that is the typical question that we normally ask. Okay, before we go into the example of the cash flow problem, let's take a look at what influenced these two graphs, okay, for you to understand the concept. First thing first, frequency of payment, delay factor are interrelated. Take a look at this graph, for instance. These two graphs. Which one is more critical? Okay, I would say this graph is more critical, and the hatchet area is much larger, bigger. Why? Simply because maybe the first month payment already start late. This is very typical in construction industry. Sometimes the first payment could be dragged, not immediately after second month, third month, because in the contract document, there is a term that mentioned the first payment will start after contractor achieve 15% of the work progress. This is as a motivation factor. If contractor basically don't bother to speed up the work, the longer they basically do the work, the later they are going to receive even the first payment. And what happened to the subsequent payment? Okay, the subsequent payment will follow suit, but then you already see this enlargement of differences between cash out and cash in. So who will be in trouble? Contractor themselves. Compared to this situation, this is much better. Even though we can notice the hatchet area is still there, but it is getting smaller because of this issue. Number three and four, contract value and profit margin. Again, interrelated also. If, for instance, your contract value is bigger and your profit margin is bigger, so meaning to say the cash in that you are going to get, it will be higher. The graph you are going to get higher and higher. At the end of the day, you notice that this area will be reduce, which is good for you. And then retention fund, or I call it RF, retention fund. What is retention fund? Okay. Normally the amount is 5 to 10% of value. What does this retention fund mean or use in the construction industry? Okay, remember, after we complete the project, let's say we complete the project here. This is the project completion, practical completion. Then contractor will go through the defect liability period. Contractor has been gone from the construction site because they already cleared the site, and they are going back to another project which might not be there. And then during defect liability period, whatever defect, contractor have to rectify. And the client will call the contractor, and then supposedly contractor have to come immediately. But since they are not there, maybe they are really moved into another state, so it will take them time to come to repair. And sometimes they don't even come to repair. That is the issue. So the client need to act fast. The client can appoint another repair contractor to rectify, and the client will pay. And where do the payment come from? From this amount. Retention fund simply mean the client will retain, will hold back some amount of money. How much? Let's say 5%. Contractor claim for that particular month is 100,000. So 5% of 100,000 would be 5,000. So the contractor will only receive payment 95,000. So 5,000 will be, the client will hold back 5,000 and put into this fund. What is this fund for? To rectify the issue during defect liability period, here, during this period, okay? And let's say after the defect liability period finish and all the repair work has been done, etc., etc., and now it is time to release final payment during final account. So whatever left basically belong to contractor, because this is contractor's money. It is not client money. Client only hold back for the purpose of the defect liability period. Okay, so if we do have retention fund being mentioned in the contract, so we need to take into account when we calculate or we come up with the cash in graph. So meaning to say the cash in graph is going to look lower here like this. See? So meaning to say look lower, meaning to say now the gap is getting wider between cash out and cash in because of some money being withheld by the client. See, that is the issue. Number here, term of payment with supplier and subcontractor. I combine together. Okay, in the construction, it has been a practice. Supplier basically give some kind of credit facilities to the contractor. So meaning to say contractor can pay 1 or 2 months after that, okay? And supplier is the one that bear the cost with the manufacturer. If that is the situation, meaning to say contractor cash flow is going to be ease a little bit because the cash out graph is going to be lower. It's going to be lower. Now the gap is getting reduced. Similarly, when contractor hire subcontractors and they can use the term like they will pay the subcontractor when they got paid from the client, delay payment. So again, to ease their cash flow. Okay. Number here, front load schedule of value. Remember I mentioned to you the S curve. Okay, the S curve. If for instance the S curve basically the way we calculate the cost is based on unit rate. The unit rate already has some kind of profit portion. The smart contractor sometimes they load profit a little bit higher at the beginning of the project activities. Why? Because if they do that, they are going to get more payment. More payment. If you notice, when they come up with the S curve is going to be bulging a little bit. S curve with the profit already, yeah? Don't get confused with that. Uh, so bulging meaning to say they load the profit at the beginning of the project. Why? Because they want to use the profit to roll the profit for the subsequent activities, so that they reduce the issue of project cash requirement. Okay, but then sometimes the client also very smart. The moment they see that kind of bulging of S-curve at the beginning of the project, they might not like it. They ask the contractor to revise, because again, client is also the one that require money also. They also need to borrow money from somebody, so they do not want the cash flow to be affected as well. Okay, they want it to be as normal as possible. So if the client could not be bothered, then you can do that. Overpayment. Why overpayment? You notice this graph, meaning to say now you want to manipulate so that you get the cash in graph is higher than this one, so that you can reduce the gap. The only way that you can get overpayment by overclaim. That is the only way. You overclaim. Can you do that? Yes, you can do that, because sometimes whatever thing that you claim is subject to actual measurement, inspection, etc., etc. But sometimes QS or whoever there don't have time to fully check all the items that you claim. They just simply approve and release payment. But later on, you notice that in the construction industry, whatever payment that you receive is being called interim payment. Interim. What does interim payment mean? Interim payment means to say payment subject to actual what we call modification or changes or adjustment, because at the end of the day, you are not going to get more money than what you already signed, okay, unless you get approval from the client. That would be a different story. You're going to get the same amount of value from the original contract anyway, but it's just a matter of 1 month you are going to get less, more, less, more. At the end of the day, it will total up to be the same. Okay, so you can do that. And lastly, advance payment. Advance payment. What does this advance payment mean? Okay, advance payment. In our class, we are going to use the concept of advance payment. In Malaysia, if you are taking government contract, because the government try to help the contractors, okay, sometimes the government concept, it is not just helping the existing contractor, but trying to help the new contractor to grow up. That is the concept, okay, the government things. So oftentimes, contractor basically do not have sufficient asset in order to start the work, etc., etc. So the government coming out with what we call advance payment. It is like you coming to university, you are getting payment from PTPTN, isn't it, initially? And that is what we call advance payment, to help you out so that you can purchase things and you can register, etc., etc. Okay, when advance payment is there in a government project, maybe government is going to give you 10 or 15% from certain amount. It is not, by right, it should be 10% out of the contract amount, but it is subject to maximum amount. It is not simply as the total amount anyway. So advance payment is going to be paid at the beginning of the project. Let's say this is AP, advance payment. When you have this advance payment, you notice what happened to the graph. So remember, advance payment is going to go into contractor's pocket or account. So the money is there already. Now you already start with some amount of money. Then let's say you get payment for the first month. Then the graph like this, like this. You notice? You see? Now automatically you are getting help from the advance payment, and now you don't have to worry about cash requirement. Even using this graph, for instance, let's say you get this amount of advance payment. Okay, we can draw like this, and then here you are going to get it is going to add up with whatever payment that you are going to receive. You notice at least the gap is getting smaller. At least that is the idea of advance payment to help the contractors. Okay, in the government project only. Private sector, sorry, they don't bother. Okay, so advance payment is to help the contractor. But again, some contractor, when they get advance payment, they thought that the money belonged to them. By right, the money belonged to the project. So that's why they use up for whatever reason, and then project will be in trouble again. See, it defeat the purpose. But whatever it is, when contractor get the advance payment, again, remember, the amount will be into the contractor account at the beginning of the project. So it will add up into the existing calculation. But then, remember, advance payment, it is like the loan money from the client. It must be returned back to the client through the deduction of monthly progress payment. Not not all in one go. It will be spread a few months. Very similar to the calculation that we are going to show you. Okay. All right. Now we go into the first example of the day. Example number one, simple one. This was the previous final exam as well, but this is very simple. Okay. In order to do cash flow calculation, we need to have this thing, two things, value and then the cost. The issue is that in current exam question, we only give you value and then profit. If you have value and profit, then you can calculate cost. If we give you profit and the value, for instance, you can also calculate cost based on this formula. So please remember this formula very well. And some people, for whatever reason, they get confused with this thing. At the end of the day, when you start your calculation wrongly, the whole thing will be wrong. Okay, so in this diagram, it is given value and cost already for each activity. So we don't have to calculate anything. So you are given the responsibility to forecast cash flow requirement before you start the project. The contract term, this is the thing that you need to be careful. The term will be reflected in terms of payment received. The payment will be released 2 months after each claim at the end of the month. So meaning to say, let's say for the first month after contractor completed work, then they will submit. Then month number two is only 1 month after completion of the work, contractor will not receive payment yet. And then month number 3, so the differences between month number 3 and 1 is equivalent to 2 months. So then contractor can start getting money. So it is very important to notice about this contractor, because you want to put the calculation into the proper, what we call, column. Calculate the maximum cash required. This is the key point for this subject. So first thing first, the data given. These are the data given. See, you notice value and cost is given. And then the activity start and finish date. Why? Because we need to draw the bar chart. So in order to draw the bar chart, we need to have the data. Either it is given directly like this, which is the simplest way of doing things, or we are going to give you in terms of predecessor. So you are going to interpret. Okay, you are going to interpret the data and try to come up with the bar chart. Okay, let's say we do have a few activities going on, and when we add up the value, so it will be 332. The cost is 307. And always remember, from this formula, V equivalent to C plus P. C is always must be lower than the value at the end of the overall calculation there. Even though in some of the activity, you notice C is bigger than V. So this is just example. In a project, not all activities are profitable. There are some activity that contractor could be running at a loss due to complexity of the task, but that's okay. Overall, you still make profit. And you notice, V equivalent to C plus P. What is P? 332, using this formula, P is equivalent to V minus C. You notice that in this project, contractor is making 25K. 25K. And in our class, we always use the concept of profit margin. When you hear about the word profit margin, it basically reflects percentage. So if we ask you how to, what is the profit margin for this project? You know the amount, and then how are you going to calculate profit margin? Are you going to calculate 25K divided by 332? Or you are going to calculate 25K divided by 307 in order to get the percentage? Okay, remember, contractors normally calculate the cost first, then markup. So from contractors' perspective, normally, they are going to, the profit is out of the C. But if we are talking about the overall project, from client perspective, especially the contract type, what we call cost plus, the profit is going to be divided by the values. That is the issue. So in order to avoid the confusion, in our real, what we call exam question, we already spell out the profit margin. Is it out of value, or the profit margin, is it out of the cost? You see, we already spell out. Why the cost? Because the data is based on the cost. In order to avoid confusion. Why value? Because the data is given based on value. This is very important. Okay, in order to avoid, because from perspective, either one also could be correct, okay, due to perspective, okay, but we want to settle that thing once and for all. We are going to spell out whether the margin is based on cost or value. Okay, now let's say this is the data given. So first thing first, when you see the data, you need to construct the bar chart. This is what we call bar chart. Okay, based on the data. Let's say 1st May, 31st May. So this is the 1st May, this is the 31st May. Okay, finish. Let's say you already constructed the bar chart. Okay, now, how do you do that? Okay, first thing first, in order to construct the whole project cash flow calculation, remember the graph that we want, cash out and cash in. Only two graphs at the end of the calculation. So that's why we are going to start with the with something, either cost or value. So that's why now from this diagram, let's say we start with value, since value is already here. Okay, so how do we do that? We distribute the value into the bar according to each month. May, for instance, 17. So we assume this the whole bar, the value is 17 because it is only 1 month. And then for piling, 80,000, but piling basically spread from the middle of the month, the middle of May until July. I can split into 4. Let's say 1 to 4 section. And you notice that this section here reflect 1/4 of the whole bar. And the whole bar, how much is the whole bar worth? Is 80, isn't it? 80. So on the May on the month of May, see, I take this thing into account, this one, and you notice how do I get 37? 37 is 17 plus 1/4 of 80, equivalent to 37. So I got the first amount based on monthly value, see? So I do that for June. I do that for June. For June is this amount only. It is like 2/4 over 80. So I get 40. And July is like this. See, this one. So that's why you need to proportionate the bar accordingly, because you are going to use this amount, this value amount. So that's why I get this one. And for August here, August, half of the what we call bar for 70 here, 70 half will be 35, but then certain portion of this thing, 1/3 of 60. So I get 55. When I do that, you notice, I will get all the distribution. If I add all this amount, it should equivalent to 332. It should be. If, for instance, along the way, you make a mistake, you make mistake by proportioning the bar, because not all the bar basically come with a solid 1 month, 2 month. No, sometimes they come in the middle, etc., like this one. So you need to basically add up the amount according to the length of the bar, so that you get this amount. When you add back, you should get 332. Okay, this is a big check. Okay, now you already completed the monthly value, okay, based on this column. Okay, so then what happened is that the next row, you notice that monthly costs. I will focus on this column using the same length of the bar because schedule is only the same. Now I go back into the May. You notice that this is the bar for the month of May. And for May, I will start with 15. So this is 15. And then notice that 70 is for this, the whole bar, but 1/4 of them would be I think 17.5. Okay. When you add those amount, you are going to get this 32.5. And this one is like half of those length, half of 70 would be 35. This is how basically you calculate. When you do this, when you can basically add up this amount, is it the same as this one? Should be the same. This is a check. Now you already completed monthly cost distribution. The most important thing, you must have value and cost. Otherwise, you cannot complete the calculation. Because at the end of the day, this is the thing that we only need. Cash out equivalent to the cost, Cash in equivalent to the value, but if the value do have some kind of what we call deduction, such as advance payment deduction, retention fund, then you have to take into account. But in our case, it does not mention anything other than the payment is a little bit late. Okay, now we can do the rest of the calculation. Okay, for the cash flow calculation, you need to basically draw column and row. Column and row. So what you need to do after you just draw this bar chart, and then you already have a few columns, then you add more row at the bottom of this slide. But since I want to make it bigger, I split into next slide like this. Okay. The best thing is that when you do the assignment, you can do in row and column. Row, for instance, you just name, put a numbering, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, because later on you know which one basically goes into the cash out, which one is basically going to be the cash in. So at the end of the day, cash out minus cash in, you will get the cash required. For instance, the last row, that is the answer. Okay, how do we do this? Step by step. Okay, monthly costs. Where do we get monthly costs? And by the way, the arrangement of the column, the row, for instance, you can be very creative by putting either value first and then cost later on, doesn't matter because it is not fixed. But since the cost is much more straightforward, I just simply put it in column in row number 1 and 2. Okay, monthly costs. Where basically this amount come from? Well, from here. This is the table that we already calculated before. So I just simply put inside the first row there. And then second row, I convert this thing into cumulative. So how do I convert? I put 32.5 at the end of this column there on the right hand side. And then 32.5 plus 35 equivalent to here. And you notice at the end of November, where we finish the project, this is the amount. And 307 is the same amount that we have been calculating before. It should be. And I put extra column. Don't worry. Put extra, because at the end of the day, when you notice that in our graph, we even have extra. This is what we call extra, in order to close the calculation. Okay, so row number 1 and 2, okay, finish for the cost. For the cost is very straightforward. And row number 2 in yellow color there, that is what we call the cash out. Now we already have the cash out. The only thing that we do not have yet is the cash in. Data. Now we are doing the cash in. Okay, we start with monthly value, row number 3, where basically this amount come from. From the previous one here, this we already calculated based on value. So you just copy and paste. Okay, copy and paste between the start and finish. Then we convert into cumulative, because whatever it is, the end result, cash in and cash out, must be on the same basis, cumulative graph. Even though we start with the monthly, but then we need to convert into cumulative. Okay, how you convert into cumulative? 37, put it here. 37 on the June, 37 plus 40, 77. 40 plus 60. Okay, at the end of the day, you get here. This amount, 332, is exactly the same amount that we have been calculating before. But you can put extra. Okay, this is 332, 332, 332. By right, I should copy until the rest. Okay, and then number 5. Okay, now after putting the monthly value and cumulative value, now number 5 is cumulative payment. Why do I put the name as cumulative payment as another row? Because remember, whatever payment received might not be equivalent to value. Might not. But in our case, we do not have any issue with deduction, but we have issue with this one. You notice here, this statement here. This statement simply say, we are going to start claim exactly first month, but then the payment received is not on the subsequent month, but on the another month. Meaning to say 2 months after each month claim. So, well, actually it is a little bit delay in terms of the payment. So how to incorporate those things into the calculation? You notice that here. On the first month, here, the first month, of course, we just completed the work. So for sure, there is no payment. We are going to submit the claim here. We are going to submit the claim. And then from here into here, this is what we call 1 month. From here into the end of July, this will be the second month. When we already reach the second month after the first, what we call progress claim submission, then only we are going to receive the first payment. And you notice that this figure here is exactly the same as this figure, but we put it on the right place. You see, it is not that difficult. Once you already know the monthly value, and if there is no other deduction, the payment will be equal to the value. But except this is the issue, when to put the first payment. So we already identify, oh, okay, the 2 months after the progress claim will be here. So you just simply put the value there on the right place. Then after that, row number 6 is when you are going to calculate cash required, which basically what the question is all about. Okay, the question is asking about cash required. Okay, so row number 2 and row number 5 is very important row. Row number 2 is the cash out, whereby row number 5 is the cash in. Now we already have, if you use the data from row number 2 and row number 5 and you plot into graph, you would exactly get this type of graph. You will get this type of graph, okay? But in our exam, we do not require you to come up with the graph because it will take time. It is sufficient that you come up with the table, because all the answer will be in this table. Or whatever answer that we normally ask about 4 questions, A, B, C, D, all the answer is basically in this table. Okay, I will show you. Okay, row number 6. Now, this is the final answer. Cash required. Remember, cash required is equivalent to cash out on that particular month minus cash in the previous month. Okay, now let me erase. How do I get this? The first payment, 32.5K. Okay, 32.5K. Remember, cash required is the cash out here. Focus on row numbers 2 and row number 5. 32.5, we are going to deduct from here, the previous month. That's why I put April. April, the project do not start yet. The starting of the project is May. But I just simply put the previous month so that you understand. 32.5 is going to be deducted from the previous month. And how much is the amount that we have in the previous month? Of course, 0. So 32.5 minus 0, we get this one. Zero is only the same for May and for June. If, for instance, you deduct 32.5 from 0 in the May, of course you can get the same answer. But you might not get the answer when you start into July. July, when you deduct with 121.7 with 37, then the answer is wrong already. Wrong in terms of you are putting in different month. Then you are not going to get perhaps the answer in terms of what we call when the cash required is maximum. That could be the issue. Okay, so remember to get the answer, first thing first, cash out June, you need to deduct with the previous like this. Then you get the answer. Okay, so this is the way you do it. July 121.7, you deduct with 0 again. That's why you get this one. August 177, you deduct with now there is a value there. Then only you get this amount. September 249, you deduct with 77. Then you get this amount. This amount. So you do that for the rest of the calculation, and you notice that when by right we should 332 sorry what happened? Okay, 332. Okay, the last amount here 307. When you deduct with this thing, okay, you notice that 307 minus 332, okay, you are going to get minus 25 because the amount is bigger than the previous one. You are going to get negative. What does negative mean? I already put a note. Negative do not mean bad things in this concept, because the number 6 row indicate cash required, money needed. But when you have negative, meaning to say now you have excess money, so you don't require the money anymore. You see, you notice that only after the third month, then basically your cash flow is getting okay. The rest, basically, you need cash. How much is the cash that you need? Here, this amount every month. Okay, but among them, there is one which is the bigger value, and the bigger value is 172, and it is happening on the month of September. So this is the answer. Okay, this is the answer that we want. How much is the money required? It's basically 172K when it is required September. Okay, and in during the exam, I mentioned to you, we don't need to draw the graph, whatever, because all the answer is here already. Normally, we are going to ask what? Total cost of the project. Here, this is the total cost of the project. We can ask about what is the total value of the project. This is the total value of the project. So one question, normally A will be coming from here or here, depend on the data that we give. The second question will be coming here. The third question will be coming here. And the fourth question would be coming from the monthly payment. Monthly payment basically here, monthly. When you hear the word monthly, it is not cumulative. We are going to see those things in the subsequent question anyway. But lastly, if we take row number 2 and we take row number 5 and plot into the graph, just to show this is the graph. So never mind in Malay, this is what we call cash out. This is what we call cash in graph. And you notice that the answer is given on September. September is here. This is the September, and this point. What is this point is all about? Okay, let's take a look at September 249. You see, this is 249 at this point, 249. 249, and then we are going to take the cash in on previous month, happening in August. This is August. August is basically 77 here. This is August. 77. This is 77. You see, I do not basically deduct with the same month. If I do that, then it is not a lot. We are concerned with the contractors having difficulties. So which one is more difficult? Is it a lesser cash require or a bigger one? So that's why the cash require is basically the cash out on that particular month minus the cash in on the previous month, because our assumption is that the money that contractor have on the current month is based on last month payment. And you notice this is the amount here happening on 9. Okay. And you notice one more thing, the end of the graph. The end of the graph, see, this point indicate value. This point indicates C, and the differences between this point is exactly the profit. So that is how you do the accounting. In a proper accounting, bookkeeping, everything must basically close. The account will be closed. So if you do it properly, then you get the idea. All right. So that is a typical example. The concept. Okay, now lastly, I just want to give you one example that really close to the typical final exam question. I've given you a sample of previous final exam question. In fact, in assignment number 2, I have given you 2 questions related to cash flow. When you look at the question, so you must basically, first thing first, you read this one. The data given, is it based on value, based on what? I already spelled out here, value. And the gross profit is based on value. That is the keyword. You see, value. Because if it is given on cost, your approach will be different. If it is value, the approach will be different. Okay, based on the formula. Okay, now the given data is based on value. Retention money. Now the RF is given 5%. So you notice, all this thing is the payment term that you need to take into account. Payment term. Progress payment is made on monthly basis, and the measurement will be exactly 1 month. Okay, there is no delay in payment. 1 month first claim on the first month, and then on the second month, it is already being paid. Okay, fine. Advance payment. This is the issue. Advance payment is going to be paid 700,000, and then will be returned back to the contractor, to the client, sorry, end of 4th month until the end of 10th month. If you count from 4th month until 10, meaning to say there is a 7 month. So each month need to be paid back, to the contractors according to paid back to the client through deduction on monthly progress payment. And then retention money is going to be repaid 3 months. If we want to close the account, that's why we need to extend the calculation into 3 more extra months. Then you see. Okay, so what are the questions? First thing first, you must look at the data. Is it the value or the cost? Okay. If data is given based on value, then basically the question, take a look at the question. The question will not be objective. Question will be subjective, but it is the same type of question. Now the question is asking you about costs. Because remember, V equivalent to C plus P. The value is given and the P is given. Can you calculate the C? For sure you can. This is a bonus question, but there are some, some people who didn't get the answer. Okay, let's take a look at this thing. Okay, first thing first. Okay, the first question is basically asking you about the cost. The given data is value. You know already, the value based on each activity is there. If you add this amount, you are going to get the value. You are going to get the value. Okay. The value would be, I would say this is the value equivalent to V. And then, okay, since the value is there, so you need to find the P. You can use the equation 12.9 equivalent to C plus P. P is what? Here, 10% of the value. 12.9 times 10%. You can use this formula, but instead of using this, okay, uh, instead of using this, I would normally do 12.9, and then since the profit is 10%, the profit is out of value, so we can discount those things 10%, 0.1%, okay? So 12.9 times 0.9. You are going to get this amount, okay? Because whatever it is, this is the value. Cost must be less than value. Don't do the other way around. Some people, we already give you value and you want to calculate, because you add one more, then it become bigger than that. The equation already show you. Whatever it is, cost must be less. So now, see, just less than that. Okay. So that would be first question. And then the second question will be asking about maximum cash. And the third question, when you get the maximum cash, of course, automatically you will get which month. And then this is the extra question. It's asking monthly payment received for the month, for the specific month. Okay. So how to start the works? First thing first, you notice the predecessor is given. So you need to construct the bar chart. That is the first thing that you do. You don't have to use the PDM diagram and PDM diagram. Solve the PDM diagram and then construct the bar chart. If you do that, it will take you longer time. Instead, you can basically construct the diagram from the data given. You notice that A is 2 months. So you just draw A, 2 months, let's say. And then B is overlap from A, Fs minus 1. So this is B. Okay, this is A, this is B. See, and then C is connecting from B. Since we already have B, then you just, this is the first month, third month, this is C. You see, now you already construct the bar chart very quickly. But of course, you need to practice how basically to interpret this data and then construct the bar chart quickly instead of coming up with this PDM diagram will take you forever. I mean, you make mistake, it is even worse. Okay, now let's say, assuming that you already know how to construct the bar chart, and the bar chart looks like this. Okay, now let's take a look at this bar chart. And this is the bar chart. Assuming you already know how to construct the bar chart. And this is the value. The value given from the diagram, from the question. So next step that we need to do, so I put it here, monthly value. Remember, because the information given based on value. So on the first month, January, so what is the bar running? And since we distribute according into the bar equally, so now on January is 400,000. February, you just simply add up this thing, so you get this amount. March here, and then April, May, so you do that, okay? So that's why first thing first, bar chart must be correct. If you got the bar chart wrong, that's it lah. From many cases that we have seen, student make a slight mistake in the bar chart construction. Even though he or she managed to come up with the full calculation, but once you make mistake on the bar chart, that's it. You're not going to get full marks. That is the issue. Okay, so let's say we already come up with, and when you have this amount, you can basically check whether it is the same as this one or not. So that would be the first check. Okay, sometimes people have the bar chart correct, but then during the calculation, they add up wrongly. Of course, they're not going to get this amount, but so that is another check that you can do. Okay, now we already completed the bar chart. Okay, assume. So from that bar chart, now we go into this, what we call row and columns. You notice that the row a little bit more, but in reality, in our what we call answer scheme, we only have a few rows because you can skip the row actually. But in order to make you understand, okay, we start with a many row. Later on, once you understand, you can skip. Okay, first row, value of work. Why value? Because we start the question with value. See, value. The data given based on value. So don't get confused, because the exam could ask you based on value or cost. So if it is given cost, you start with the cost. If it is given based on value, you start with value. So don't follow blindly our example, because the example sometimes we show you in terms of value, then basically in the final exam we give you data in terms of cost, then you still want to follow based on value, which is wrongly. You might interpret it wrongly, but if you do it in a proper way, it is not wrong. Okay, it is not wrong, because the most important things, value must be more than cost. Okay, now you start with value. Where do we get all these numbers? From here. From here, you just simply copy and paste into the first row. You finish. Number 2, cumulative value. Can you convert into cumulative? Yes, it is simply just convert that into cumulative 400, put it here, and then for February, 400 plus 1.2 million there, you will get this amount. And you notice at the end of the cumulative, you get the same amount as we already calculated. So meaning to say, we might basically do the correct things because you get the amount there. Okay, so that would be the second row. Third row, profit. Why basically we put profit inside there? Because we want to calculate costs based on this formula. V equivalent to C plus P. And when we want to calculate cost, C equivalent to V minus P, isn't it? So that's why we show you step by step. But in reality, you can basically skip, because once you understand the concept, C is equivalent to V times whatever profit less than 1, for instance, in terms of the mathematical formula, you can get exactly the same. Okay, now let's say profit is 10%. So you put it there first, and then you start calculating profit. 10% out of 400. You calculate based on monthly first. Don't take the cumulative. You take this amount. So you notice, 10% out of 400, you will get here 40,000. 10% of this second month, you will get 120. So you just put it there first. Then only row number 5, you can calculate costs. So cost is simple. Once you know how much is the profit, whatever the value, for instance, 360. How do we get 360? 400,000 minus 40, equivalent to 360. Okay, 360. So this is what we call 360,000. So that's why, because in Excel, for instance, you can put a formula automatically. Once you run formula into the first column, and subsequent column will follow. So this is what we call monthly costs. Now, monthly cost distribution, you already know. Then, row number 6, cumulative costs. Convert the monthly cost into cumulative costs. Here, this is easy one. So 360, you convert into cumulative. So put the 360 on the first January, and then subsequently for February, 360 plus 1080, then you get this amount. And you notice that here, you get 11,610. Exactly the same thing that we already calculated here. Okay. If you don't believe me, you just use this formula. You will get the same amount. But if, for instance, you have put into the table all the answer in the final exam will be in this table. So that's why I mentioned to you in assignment number 2, please label your answer by putting a bold color, etc., etc., so that you know how to pinpoint. Later on, even during exam, you know where to get the answer from. Okay, so number 6, yellow in color. Row number 6 actually is the cash out row. You see, now we already pinpoint what is the cash out row. So that's why I mentioned to you, cash out is very simple. Whatever the cost that you identify for each month, you convert into the cumulative, that would be the cash out data. Okay, we finished. The difficult one are related to the cash in. In order to get the cash in, what we call data, we must go through a few row there. You see, you notice row number 7. Row number 7 until 13. Then only we get into the last one. Okay, never mind. We go slow. Okay, now monthly claim. Let me erase this thing first. Okay, row number 7, monthly claim. You notice that the monthly claim 400 and all the values basically the same from the values. So that's why actually row number 7, you can even continue from row number 2 if you know, if you understand the concept. Then that's why you don't have to follow exactly like our arrangement. You can jumble up. The most important things at the end of the day, we want to identify which one is the row for the cash out and row for the cash in. That's it. Because in order to get row number 14, you need to identify those things. But never mind, you can follow like us. Okay, number 8, retention. Again, since retention is been mentioned, 5% ish, then we deduct the amount from the claim here. 5% out of 400,000 is 20,000. So we establish those things first for each month, okay? And then advance payment. Remember, advance payment is the money that goes into the contractor account. At the beginning of the project, I would say this is the plus additional money coming in. But then you notice, we are going to return back to the client. This is negative, negative, negative for 7 months. That's how you put into the table, but you need to understand which one to deduct later on. Even though you do not put the positive or negative sign, never mind. But later on, when you want to add or deduct, so you must know which data to take into account. Okay, row number 11. Row number 11 is cumulative retention. Okay, cumulative retention is not much going to be to affect our calculation, because this amount 645 is the last amount that is going to be repaid to the contractor after the 3rd month of the project completion, as we mentioned. Okay, if you want to have the account system to be closed, for instance, at the end of the day, like what I did, we are going to be able to get the last amount here after add back the retention money. And you notice, 645, where does this 645 coming from? If we take the project value here, times 5%, we are going to get 645. Immediately we know that this is the amount of money that is going to be held back by the client, to be retained by the client. But this money belong to the contractors, is going to be returned back to the contractor only after a few months. Normally, in normal practice, contractor is going to get this money only during the final account, far away from the project completion period yet. That is the normal practice. Okay, then number 12. Row number 12. Here. Row number 12. Now we are going to establish monthly money received or paid by the client. Okay, this is very important row, number 12, very important row. Row number 13 is the cumulative. So before we can come into the row number 13, so we must establish row number 12 first. So this is the key row. So how do we get this amount into this row? Okay, let's go back one by one. 700,000 on the January. Where does this money come from? 700,000. Remember, we do have advance payment, and advance payment is here. It's going to be in the contractor account at the beginning of the project. Even at the beginning of the project, even as early as January or even December, we already assume that the money is there already. So that's why it is here. It will stay here. Then 380. Where does this amount come from? You need to understand. This amount is the payment received. Whatever payment received in February is meant, is coming from the work that being done on January. So remember, we make a claim 400,000 on January, end of January works. But since we do have retention 5%, contractor is going to deduct to 20,000. So that's why 400,000 deduct with 20,000, then only we get 380. So that is how the calculation basically is all about. Okay, simple, based on the information given. When here, this is the things. Each claim will be paid 1 month later. So that's why 380, supposingly, the value of our work is 400,000, equivalent to the value that we already calculated at the beginning of the project. But then since retention is there, so it must be deducted because the money is going to be withheld by the client and the contractor is only going to receive 380,000 for that particular month. Okay. Now, next month, March 1140. Where does this 1140 come from? Remember the work being done in the previous month, 1200. But then 1200 have to be deducted with the retention money. So this is the things that we get. Okay, then April here. This you need to pay attention. 660 here. Where do we get? Remember from the previous month, March, 800,000. Deducted with 40,000. 800, if you do the calculation, minus 40 is only 740 and 760. But our answer showing 660, missing 100. Where does 100 come from? You notice that on April, here, this amount is going to be deducted. Even though contractor supposedly to receive 760, correct, but the client is going to deduct 100. 100 is the advance payment deduction. That's why we get 660. So 660 is there to stay. You need to be very careful when you do the calculation. And I can tell you, in a final exam, very often we are going to give you advance payment term, and the calculation will be very similar. Okay. And then on May are the same as April. Okay, take a look at this. May, we are going to take this amount, 1.7 million, deduct with 1185, and then deduct with this amount, 100,000, negative, negative, negative here. And then we are going to get this amount here, 1515. Okay, similarly for June, 1.7 or the same 1.7, and then deduct with this thing, and then deduct with this thing, and of course we are going to get the same amount. So you do that for the rest of the calculation. So then you are going to fill up the amount until the last one here. That is the concept. Okay. So that will be the monthly receipt. Once we get the money received, then we convert those things into cumulative. Row number 13. This is the easiest part. Row number 13, the easiest part. Remember, the 700,000 normally will appear not only in January, but we normally already put prior to the project start. Okay, we already put prior to the project start. So that's why 700 is there. And then, of course, since it is cumulative, so January, it will be there. And then, okay, for February, 700 plus with 380. Okay, so you get this amount. And the rest basically will be equivalent to the last portion here. Okay, that will be the cumulative. So once we get this row number 13, then we almost complete the calculation. Row number 14. Row number 14 is for us to get the answer. See, before getting the answer, you see how many calculation that you need to do. Okay, cash required, 14. Using the same formula, cash out minus cash in. I already give you the notes there, just example. Okay, focus on January. This is when our project start. We are going to to focus on two row only. Row number 6, row number 6, row number 6, minus row number 13. Cash required. But we need to take into account the month. Okay. So for January, 360. Okay. 360. 360 going to be deducted with the money that we have in row number 13 in the previous month, not the same month. In the previous month, actually, here. So that's why I put 700,000 at the beginning so that you can see. It is we assume that we already have money coming in into our account, 700. So that's why we get here negative. What does negative mean? As we already mentioned, negative mean we do not require money. We have excess money only on the first month. Why? Because we spend only 360, but we already have money 700,000. So that's why we have excess money. So on the first month, we are okay. Then on the second month, February. So again, we take this amount, 1.44, minus this amount, minus 700,000 again, because the amount, the money is already there since all the value in row number 6 and 13 is basically cumulative. So that's why it carry forward. That's why we get this amount. Then March 2160 minus this amount. Then you get here. So you do that for the rest of the column. And for cash required, you don't have to minus with anything else. You just focus between two rows because we already established in row number 12. Remember, row number 12 we already come up with the net amount monthly. Then we convert into the cumulative amount, so you don't have to worry. For instance, in April 3690, where to deduct here? You just deduct like this. Then you get this amount. Okay, using this formula. Remember, row here, this formula, the note down there. Okay. Otherwise, if you deduct on the same month, you're not going to get the answer. Okay. All right. So if you do that, you notice in the table here, there is a bigger value, 2910, that appear in the month of August. So this is the maximum amount. Okay, the maximum amount that happened in the month of August or 8. Okay, so that will be the answer. And you notice that if you do the whole calculation, the accounting, the bookkeeping, the accounting, you notice this amount, 1290 in negative. What does this amount is all about? Actually, if you take value here, you minus with cost, this is what we call profit. You see, in the accounting system, it will close. And how do I get 1200? After 645, I need to add back with another 645, but it is in negative form because it is excess money. Then I get the whole profit. So this basically comply with this formula, equivalent to P, again and again. All right, so that will be cash require, and lastly, last question that we normally ask student here. Monthly payment, monthly. The keyword is monthly, not cumulative. Monthly payment received of all work on that particular month, on 9th month. So where to zoom in? Where to zoom in? Okay. So this question basically, you already have the answer. If you done correctly in the Excel form, you already have the answer. But some people make a mistake by looking at the answer wrongly. Okay, first thing first, where do we zoom in? We need to zoom in into row number 12, monthly payment. And since we are looking at the work, the payment for the work done on September, and since it is on September, it is going to be paid on October. So look at the October column and look at this row number 12, and the October one is here. This is the amount. Okay, that is the amount. Don't give the September one. September one is meant for the work done on August. You see? So you have to be very careful with that. So that would be the answer. And all the answer for A, B, C, D normally associated with the cash flow are in this table. Answer number one here. This is the value given, and this is the cost that we need to calculate. When the question give you the table in value, of course, it will ask you cost. Okay, so the cost is there. And then here, this is the another question. The cash required, maximum cash required happening in August. So that will be the third question. And the fourth question is here. Payment received on what particular month. So focus on monthly payment, not the cumulative. Cumulative is meant for us to calculate the cash required. Okay. All right. So that is a typical final exam question. So another example that you can go through, very similar concept, is based on cost. Instead of given, the data given is based on value, now it is based on cost. Okay, you notice we already mentioned the word cost. And then cost. Here, this is the cost. And what you need to do, again, when the cost is given, of course, we ask you the value. How to get the value? Very simple. The cost is there already. Can you add up all this amount? When you add up all that amount, I think you are going to get the cost. Okay. The cost, maybe the cost is here. This is the cost. Okay. And then, wait a second, what is the cumulative cost? Yes. So the cost is here. Okay, this is the cost that you calculate. And how to get the value? V equivalent to cost plus P. You know that the value is going to be more than the cost. So for me, it's very easy. The 10, 800, I just time with what? 15%. Why don't you do that? 1.15. And of course, you are going to get this amount. Easy. Okay? Because you know that the profit, the value should be more than the cost. The amount should be bigger. Okay? That is the way. Okay, now the question is asking about maximum cash. Again, which month? And then monthly payment received on June only. Okay? So first thing first, you need to establish the what we call bar chart. Okay, this is the bar chart based on cost. See, we already show you the cost. and cost for each month. You establish based on the first month here, and then second month here, third month is 800, fourth month you add up this one, and when you get all the cost distribution, it should be equivalent to this 10 million there, and then you can convert into cumulative cost. And this cumulative cost is the cash out. Now you already have the cash out table. See, the cash cumulative cost, the cash out is here already. Then you are going to get the values. Okay, you list out the profit first, and then remember, when you want to calculate, you calculate the profit out of the given cost first. 600,000 times 1.15 time 15, you are going to get 90. And then using this formula plus P, or how do you get 690? Simple, 600 times 1.15. Of course, you are going to get 690 in a fast way. So you can skip, for instance, row number 3, okay, row number 3 and 4, okay, because you already know how to calculate. Then cumulative value, monthly value you already know, then you convert into cumulative. You see, this is the question number 1 that we ask. From the table, you can get the amount also. And then monthly claim. Remember, monthly claim is equivalent to value. Monthly value, first thing first, you establish. Then you deduct with the retention money. Okay, retention money. And then you put the advance payment. Advance payment is being shown going to be deducted in 3 months, going to be paid back in 3 months. Okay, so cumulative retention is one thing, and then monthly receive. Okay, first thing first, this is very important row. How do you get 900,000? Because it is the advance payment being mentioned. And then how do you get 655? Remember, 655 is from the monthly claim. 690, you deduct with retention here, then only you get this amount. So you do that for the rest of the column, but you need to be very careful in the month of 8, 9, and 10, because you need also to deduct with this. Then only you get this amount. Okay, how to get to 792 is from 1150 minus 57 minus 300. If you don't believe me, you can try. Okay, for the month of 8, 9, 10, then only you get the amount. Once you get the row number 11, then you convert into cumulative monthly. Cumulative is very easy. Just basically add up with the first month, second month, etc., etc. Then you get a tabulation of cumulative cost. And lastly, cash needed. Okay, cash needed. Again, let's focus on row number 2 and row number 12. Okay, on the first month, 300 in bracket is basically negative 300. Where do I get? Okay, I take 600, I minus on the first month here. And the first month, remember, I get 900,000 in my pocket already. So 600,000 minus 900 will be negative 300K. So this is what 300K is all about on the first month. Okay. And on the second month, I take 1.2 million minus here 900,000 also. Okay, because on the first month I don't have any other money coming other than 900,000. I get this amount. 300, meaning to say now I require money. How much? 300,000. Okay. On the third month, 2 million minus 15555, you get this amount. So you do that for the rest of the calculation. Just copy paste the formula. Don't worry about you want to deduct with other thing. No, because once you come into the row number 12, meaning to say it is a net already, you take into account everything. So now after doing that, you notice that you are going to get the answer, the maximum cash is here, and it is happening on the 6th month. Okay, that will be the second and third question. And then the value of the project here. The last question, asking monthly payment received on June. Okay, where to zoom in? You are going to zoom in monthly receive. Instead of June, you need to focus on here, July. And you notice the one that I highlighted in yellow, that is the answer. Okay. All right. So that would be the example that I want to go through. The rest are again other finalizing question as well. So you can basically go through and perhaps to understand the concept. We have given you plenty of example compared to the previous student, but yet still people get confused. Okay. Okay, let me stop sharing.